All right, so we are still moving through the book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, and I am jumping into chapter 46. I'm going to cut this a little bit early and pair the last portion of chapter 46 with the start of chapter 47 because it kind of flows together. So, this again is going to be chapter 46, and we're just going to go from verses 1 through 27. So, where we left off is Jacob has heard that his son Joseph is alive and that Joseph is in charge in Egypt. He's the reason why they have food. He is powerful and he has sent his brothers to come and move the entire family into Egypt so that they're not going to suffer through the remaining years of this famine. They are 2 years into this 7-year famine. And so Jacob doesn't believe it, and the sons are like, "Look outside. We got the king's chariots out here. We got horses and everything to pack up and move, and let's do this." And so Jacob sees it, and it switches between the name Jacob and Israel, and we see that happen a little bit more. We'll talk about that. So in verse 46, it starts off and says, "Israel took his journey with all that he had." So we have talked about Jacob hearing about his son, but Israel is the one that responded. And this is, of course, the same person. His name was changed when he had the encounter with the angel that he wrestled with all night, trying to force that blessing. And what we find is the reason why there's a name change is he is one who wrestles with God, meaning he kind of has a struggle between walking in the purpose and the identity and in the promise that God has given him, and he kind of being himself. So he deals with a lot of the baggage that he carries from his youth, from his childhood, from his encounter with his father-in-law, all of these things that he kind of wrestles with, even himself standing in the new of God, standing in the promise of God, being who God called him to be. He kind of wrestles in that. So he bounces back and forth, kind of depending on the mood almost. But here, after hearing that his son Joseph lives, he was strengthened. His heart is restored. He's no longer grieving and depressed and dark. He's like, God has given me something back. This is proof of the promise that God gave me, and I'm a walk in it. And so he again finds himself and he starts to take this journey. And so it says that when he comes to Beersheba, he offers sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. And what we see a lot is when we talk about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's this kind of family line right here that are the foundational fathers, the forefathers of the Israelites as a people. And so he stopped. He was like, you know what? I was about to get on this road, but let me pray and ask God for safe travel. Let me pray and ask God to cover me and make sure that this is a move that God is asking me to make. Because sometimes we get excited because the thing that we've wanted for a long time is finally here and available to us. But, God didn't say move. And so he's checking to make sure that God is in agreement with this. And while he does that, he creates a sacrifice, he prays, and he waits for an answer from God. And it says in verse 2 that God spoke to Israel in visions of the night. He sent him a dream. And he talked to him and he said, Jacob, look, I'm the God that is the God of your fathers. I'm the God that made the promises to you way, way back when you were headed in to meet your uncle Laban and when you were headed out. I'm the God who smoothed everything over with your brother. I'm the God who provided for you and gave you wealth. I'm the God that brought you back home to see your father before he dies. I'm that God. And he said, I want you to go into Egypt with no fear. Know that I'm bringing you in and I will bring you out. And that in that space, I'm going to make you a great nation. So the promise has been that there's going to be a blessing, that these people are going to be more numerous than the dust on the earth, more numerous than the stars in the sky. And right now, he's doing a pretty good job with these 12 sons and a daughter. And these 13 kids, he's doing a good job of making sure he's putting some dust out here. He is throwing stars up. But what we see is God saying, I'm promising you that you're going to go into Egypt and that you're going to come out and that I'm going to be with you and I'm going to be with your descendants the same way. So this is a move I want you to make. And so, and he promises him at the end of verse 4, it says, and Joseph shall put his hands upon thy eyes. He's going to see, you're going to see him. You're going to not only see him, but you're going to touch him. You're going to feel him. Y'all are going to be reunited. I'm giving you back the son that you thought you lost. I'm giving you back proof of my promise that even the things that you thought weren't going to happen are going to happen. I'm giving you proof that these things have been dead in your mind and in your heart for so many years, yet live. This is the promise that it's going to be okay. And so in verse 5, Jacob gets up and he was like, let's go, let's do it. And so he pack up everything and everybody. They pack them all up. And so what they do is they spend the next couple of verses marking everyone who's going in based off of their families. So in verse 5, it says that he carried, that the sons of Israel carried their father, their children, their wives, and then everything that they had. They loaded up the wagons that Pharaoh sent, these chariots and horses that were designed to kind of carry all their stuff back. They took their cattle, all their goods, and everything they had. And so Jacob went with all his seed, meaning he didn't leave any sons behind. Nobody was like, Daddy, I'm gonna stay here because you bought this land, or Daddy, I'm gonna stay here and I'm gonna camp along the way and create a life for myself in this land that we come across. But everybody went with him. And so it says, there's a breakdown of each of his sons and they give a count. So from verse 8 to verse 27, it talks through the family lines that are brought in. And so it starts off with his oldest son, Reuben, and Reuben brings his sons in. And then Simeon brings his sons in. And Levi, I'm going to mention the name of his sons because we hear the name of his sons in when we get into like numbers and things like that, as the people are being numbered, as the Levites are being assigned tasks and duties as their responsibilities. We see these three names and they actually are clans within this tribe. And it is Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. And these three sons you're going to see again. There are other ones who you will hear the names of, but those three clans from Levi are mentioned specifically because of the role that Levi plays, or the Levites, the sons of Levi, play in the lives of the Israelites as they kind of progress through being God's chosen people and the timeline of their population and their lifestyle and their move into the promised land. And then we have the sons of Judah. Now, Judah, we remember from way back a couple chapters ago, he had a son, who was married to a woman, Tamar. And when he is cut off, because God said he was evil and he cut him off, and he dies, his wife is then passed to his brother, and because she didn't have children. And he was supposed to give a child that he was supposed to marry her, impregnate her, give her a child that will be raised up for his brother. And he kind of knew like this wasn't going to work out in my favor in any kind of way. So he refused to do that and was cut off. And so there is a whole story in another video about Tamar. Go and look. But what happens is she ends up having twin sons. And these two sons that she has actually keep the numbers even for Judah, even though the line and the mother and the family themselves has changed. So you see the names of his first two sons, and Onan, and they're mentioned, and then it says a little bit later that they both died in Canaan. And so there's two that take their place. There's other names that are listed. So those sons that were with Tamar are included in this group, even though it kind of seemed like she just kind of went off and had these babies and kind of went away. We do see their names again here. So they are among those. They are numbered in the ones that go into Egypt. They are with Jacob or Israel. They're with him and his family as they go back in. And so we see Issachar and his sons, and Zebulon and his sons. And those are the children of Leah. Leah had the majority of his children. That was the first wife. Leah had the majority of the children, and the majority of them are sons. And so it also includes the daughter Dinah. And Dinah does not marry that we see. She does not have children that we see. And it says in total, that's 33 people. 33 people. He has just a number of sons here, and it is 33 people that comprise this particular section of family. And then he has his son Gad and his sons, Asher and his sons, and then those are the sons of Zilpah. Zilpah was one of the maids that was Leah's maid. She came over as a handmaid and became a wife when Leah was unable to have children. So she has two children. And then Leah, of course, begins to have kids again. So those are the children of Leah. And it is 16 people from those two sons, 16 people. There are 33 from the first six. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. So we are 7 sons in now. We shouldn't be 7 sons in. It was 6 sons. I'm sorry, Zebulon. So we are 8 sons in now, and we are at 33 in the first family, 16 in the second. Then they look at Rachel's children. Rachel is Joseph's mother, and so it counts, and it says in verse 20 that Joseph is in the land of Egypt. He had 2 sons that were born there. But Rachel is Jacob's wife, and she has Joseph and Benjamin. Benjamin has his sons there. And it says in verse 22, there are 14. And then the sons of Dan, Naphtali, those are the sons of Bilhah. Those are Rachel's maid. That's Rachel's maid, who was, of course, given as a wife as well. And she was able to have children. And so it says in total, with wives, were 3 score and 6. It is 66 people that came in. And then they count the ones who were born in Egypt and all the ones who were born, and it ends up being a total of 70. So there is a count of Joseph and his sons. There is a count of Dinah, wives, things like that. But it gives you 3 score and 10. So it actually adds some people in who went into Egypt as a part of this family. Okay? So, quick recap. First, after finding out that his son Joseph is alive, Jacob is reunited with all of his sons, including the one that's been sitting in jail all this time, that they kind of just left there. And all of his sons travel to Egypt. They realize that their brother Joseph is the person they've been dealing with this whole time. Joseph sends back all these kind of gifts and everything from Pharaoh, and some gifts from himself to let his father know that he's here and he wants him there. He's like, hey, come on back. So Jacob comes back with all of them, and it counts out who all is included in his family. Everybody who goes in. The reason why it is important to number the people that go in is because God gave him a promise that I'm going to bring you in and I'm going to bring you out. And while you're there, I'm going to make you a great nation. So numbering how many people went in help you to see and recognize and realize how great this nation is. It helps you to realize that they are in fact growing during this process, and you can see from a very small number, which is large for literally a man and his sons and grandsons, for him and his children, because there are some daughters in here, and that is probably why the number jumps in the way that it does. There are some daughters in here. There are lots of sons in here. But for a man, his sons and his grandsons to go in and be 70 people, and when they come out in Exodus, which is the next book, when they come out of Egypt in Exodus after a period of years, they are a nation They're no longer a family, a tribe, a clan. They are a nation. They are a very powerful unit. So do not despise small beginnings. Do not decide that you are, not enough, or not great enough, or not big enough, or not enough in numbers to be able to do the things that God has called you to do. Like, don't decide that this won't work for you because it's just you and a group of friends. Go do what God told you to do. If he gave you a promise, he's going to see to it. He's going to give you signs along the way that it's working out. And sometimes, even when it feels like it's time to give up, even when it feels like, it's not working, this thing is dying, this thing is done. I don't have any customers, I don't have any followers, I don't have any likes, I don't have anything. Just know that if you're doing what God told you to do, there's going to be a point where he sends you something. He's going to give you proof that this thing is still alive. And that's what he did in this passage, this chapter, for Jacob, is he gave him proof that the promise was still alive. He didn't lose a son. No one that came from you that's a part of this legacy and lineage is lost. Everybody's here. All right, y'all, be blessed.